All right. Anybody out there creeped out by bugs? This might not be your video. This might not be the one for you. You might be like, I'm uploading this probably pretty late at night, so if you're about ready to go to bed and you're like, ooh, new teching video. Hey, it's about bugs. Yeah, all right, I think I'm just gonna go to sleep instead. Yeah, that's okay. Go right ahead. So I will be showing a lot of images of bugs in this video, and I have a little friend here that I would like you all to meet. Here we go. Easy there, little buddy. There we go. This is my friend. He is a stag beetle. He's very shy, very meek little beetle, and is very fascinating. Little fun fact about this guy is he's not real. Yeah, he's actually made of plastic. The very rare plastic stag beetle that only exists here. And that's it. Actually, no, I was in Japan a few months back, earlier this year, and there's gotcha machines all over Japan. Like, they are everywhere, okay? Like, they're in every train station. You'll just be walking down the street. You'll see these gotcha machines everywhere, and, different amounts of money depending on how big, the little toy you're going to get inside, a little figure you're going to get inside, right? And some of the weirdest ones, dude. Like, we saw ones that were, like, brands of washing machines. Like, oh, man, I got to collect all the different brands of washing machine gotchas. But the one that immediately caught my eye was the big 500 yen one, where you could collect different beetles, and you get them and you have to put them together, and they come in like all these little different pieces. But it's really cool. Like you can actually pull the shell back a little bit there. Isn't that neat? Yeah, that's cool. I like it. I think it's cool anyway. All right, so I really like bugs. I like studying bugs. I like reading about bugs. If I see a cool bug, I'll take a picture of it. I'm a member of a few entomology pages on Facebook. I just like studying bugs. They're really cool. And to anybody out there that is still watching that is terrified by bugs, I will say the same thing to you as anybody else I encounter that's like kind of skeeved out by bugs. I'm just like, it's their planet. It's their planet. They were here long before us. They were here long before the dinosaurs. It's effectively their planet, so you might as well just they'll be here long after we're gone. So just chill out, and most of the time they don't mess with you. All right. So interestingly enough, there's only been actually three devil fruits in the One Piece story that are the Mushi no Mi variant, the insect or the bug fruit. Now, two of them you might immediately recognize as being the Tontatas during Dressrosa, Kabu and Beyond. They have Mushi zones that were very prominently displayed in that arc. Which one is the third one, you might be asking? Was there a third insect zone? Go ahead, make your guesses down below on who it is. Don't go and check. It's actually not confirmed 100%, but it pretty much is. You'll see how it goes. But go ahead and make your guesses down below, and we'll get to that character when we get to them. Mushi in Japanese can mean insect or bug. It can also just mean really tiny things. If you've ever seen Mushi, great anime. Fantastic anime. I actually just recently went back. Like, that's such a soothing, relaxing anime that, like, especially in the winter. That one episode where, Ginkgo goes through the town in the middle of the snow, and there's those mushi that, like, hide in people's ears. It's like, ooh, but it's like, it's cool. I love Mushi. It's an awesome anime. But anyway, it just refers to anything like really small, tiny organisms kind of thing, right? Okay. So, Kabu has the Mushi no Mi model Rhinoceros Beetle, and Beyond has the Mushi no Mi model Hornet. Now, interestingly, even in Japanese, when Oda will ever show, what the name of a Zoan is in the particular model, the model name will always be written in English. Very interestingly enough, so even in Japanese, it'll be written like leopard will be written in katakana, giraffe will be written in katakana, right? The lone exception is with the Mushi no Mi models, and I don't know if that's like a specific reason, or maybe Oda just forgot about it in that instance. But for example, the Mushi no Mi model Hornet is not Hornet in katakana; it's Mushi no Mi model Suzume Bachi, which means Beyond can turn into Soifone Zanpakuto from Bleach. But no, Suzume Bachi is the Japanese name for the Asian giant hornet. Okay, so that is the specific type, the specific species of hornet that Beyond turns into, okay? Same thing with Kabu. It's the Japanese name for rhinoceros beetle. So there it is. Kind of an interesting little fun fact with these fruits. Now, they're already tontatas, so they're already like little, you know, they're tiny. All right. And so the insect zones seems to make a perfect, you know, fit for them, right? You know, and so Beyond turns into a hornet. Her hybrid form is just, you know, she stays the same size and she just buzzes around as a hornet. She gets a stinger. Kabu can fly around as well. He gets the armor of a beetle. They both get exoskeletons because they're insects, as well as Kabu gets like the Rhinoceros Beetle horn. It's like, okay, that's cool. Now, what would happen though if a human consumed the Mushi Mushi no Mi? Yeah, so this is, at this point, we gotta talk about size, ladies and gentlemen, okay? We gotta talk about size. What would happen if Wang ate a Mushi Mushi no Mi? Then we could talk about size of Wang. It's just like, okay, so a lot of the times whenever Oda will depict a human eating a Zoan fruit, usually, like let's say, for example, Kaku's giraffe Zoan. When he goes into a full giraffe form, it is about the size of an actual giraffe that exists in our world, okay? It's not a human-sized giraffe. It's like an ordinary giraffe when Kaku goes into his full animal form. Same thing with Dalton. When he goes into his full bison, looks to be about the size of a normal bison, all right? There are some exceptions with this. Whenever Who's Who goes into his full saber-toothed cat form, even though it is an extinct species, we have some pretty good fossils of it, they weren't that huge. Who's Who goes into, like, giant cat. He is a big kitty cat when he goes into that form, right? And then other examples, like Pell. Pell transforms into a falcon. His full animal form isn't the size of an ordinary falcon. That thing is huge, all right? Like, it's big enough for, like, Luffy and Vivi to, like, ride on top of it, okay? So the general rule, I think, although I think there's a few that are an exception here, and I don't even know if Oda uses this as a rule or if it's just he doesn't really pay attention to it all that much, but the general rule seems to be, if the animal is bigger than a human, you will just go into the form of that animal, right? But in the case of like a falcon or a hawk, if the animal is smaller than a human, right? Because like a fully grown peregrine falcon is way smaller than a human being, right? And Pell's not that huge. He's like probably like 6 foot, but in the One Piece world, that's like nothing, right? Okay, so if the animal is smaller, then the full animal form will compensate for that, and you'll just become a big human-sized version, or whatever size you were. Like if you were a giant that ate the falcon Zoan, you would turn into a giant-sized falcon, I would assume, right? I guess that's the rule. At any rate, it seems that a full animal form of a Zoan won't make you smaller, with certain exceptions. You know, like Chopper has the rumble balls that can maybe mess around with that, and there's certain sort of drugs you can take, but for the most part, that seems to be the general rule, okay? So I would therefore say, if a human ate, like, you know, the Mushi Mushi no Mi model ant, you wouldn't go in the full animal form, you wouldn't shrink down to the size of an ant, although there are some applications with that. You could also just get stepped on, right? I think you would turn into a human-sized ant, like an ant that's like, I don't know, 5 feet across or something like that. It would be very terrifying, okay? So that's at least my opinion on it. The fact that 2 Tontatas are the users of the Mushi Mushi no Mi that are confirmed to exist in the story is just coincidental, in my opinion. Then again, remember, the Zoan fruits get to they have a level of sentience, so they sort of get to choose who's going to eat them, you know, where at least they will spawn around where they want to be. So you could look at it like the Mushi Mushi Zoans may, you know, be gravitated towards the Tontata because of their size and whatnot. It might just be better adapted for that sort of thing, I would assume, right? There were giant insects at one point, and in fact, we could have an ancient Zoan Mushi Mushi no Mi that turns you into huge insects of the Carboniferous, okay? So the Carboniferous period into the Permian, the oxygen levels on Earth were way, way bigger, and insects do not breathe the conventional way like a human breathes, right? They don't breathe through through their mouths. They kind of breathe through like all over their body, right? So the amount of oxygen that's in the atmosphere is proportional to how big insects can become. There's an upper limit to the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere, how big insects can actually get now. I think the giant insects, the biggest insect on the planet right now is the giant weta, and it's an insect. It's like a giant cricket, basically, and it's native to New Zealand. Oh, isn't that thing just adorable? Look at that giant weta. Look at that thing eating a carrot. Oh, my God. I need to visit New Zealand. I'm not even saying that ironically. I really genuinely want to visit New Zealand bad. Okay, but anyway, yeah. Anybody that lives in New Zealand, have you seen a giant weta? Let me know. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, so that's about how big insects get now. But back during the Carboniferous and the Permian, oh my God, dude, like 300 million years ago, you got like massive dragonflies, like huge dragonflies, right? Maybe not quite the size of a human, but they would be pretty big buzzing around. You definitely hear them in the sky. Not insects, but giant scorpions too. You know, giant scorpions seem fun. You know, you also got, what else? Oh, there were like these, basically like these things were like bigger than a human, like a 6-foot human. These things were much longer than that. They were essentially like giant millipedes that would like skirt around the bottom of the floor of the forest. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying, but so cool, right? Right? I love bugs. You know, here's some of my bug pictures that I've taken. And this is a leopard moth, I believe, is what this is. Really cool moth I saw when I was walking to the post office one day back in my small country town I used to live in. And once again, not an insect, arachnid, but this is a trapdoor spider that I got a glimpse of last year. I was taking the trash out of my house and it was raining, and these guys very rarely leave their burrows because they're trapdoor spiders. But in this case, it was raining really bad, so I think what happened is they got flooded out of its burrow. And I saw it outside by the trash can, and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is awesome. So I had to take a picture of it. So there we go. Okay. Anyway, just a side story on bugs really quick. Okay. So in the case with Kabu, rhinoceros beetles, very strong. That the rhinoceros beetles and various types of like Hercules beetles and stuff will often clash. You know, you got to see them fighting. In fact, that's sort of a thing that exists in Japan, is insect fighting. This is actually one of the things that spawned Pokemon, oddly enough. Yeah, Pokemon. You remember the guy that created Pokemon went to go, and a lot of kids back in their day would like play with like, you know, bugs, and they would catch bugs in the forest and have them fight each other and everything like that. And so that was kind of the origin of like pocket monsters and Pokemon, right? And all that kind of stuff, right? So very durable, very strong. The order of beetles, Coleoptera, probably mispronounced that, but that is the largest order of insects that exists on the planet. There's about 400,000 members. Keeping in mind right now, there's around 1 million species of insect that have been cataloged. However, most estimates put the total number of species on the planet Earth, are you ready for this? Somewhere between 5 to 10 million, with some estimates even going higher than 10 million, but typically around 5 to 10 million insect species. Not just insects, insect species. That's what I'm saying, man. The planet Earth is their planet. It's theirs, okay? I guess you could go further than that and say, like, bacteria is like, well, bacteria were here even before the insects. Okay, fair. But you can't really see and interact with bacteria all that much. I mean, I guess you kind of can, but insects you can actually see. You know what I mean? So there you go. They're big enough to actually interact with, okay? At least most of them are. Some of them pretty tiny. Okay, so that's Kabu, and keep in mind, they're all tontatas, so the tontatas have, like, proportional strength to, like, an ordinary person, like, and they're really strong because they train as well, right? So a tontata could, like, be really tiny, but could punch you really hard in the arm, and that's gonna hurt, okay? So now Kabu just enhanced strength proportional to that of, I guess, a rhinoceros beetle human. Also the fact that they have the keratin, they have the really hard exoskeleton shells, so to add a defense there, right? Okay. He has one attack, Beetle Upper, which he actually used to, like, knock, like, a bunch of the members of the Doflamingo family away when they were about to use Mansherry's ability to heal them all. Kabu comes out of nowhere and is like, oh, hell no! Bam! We just spent so many chapters fighting and defeating these guys. It's not happening again. Boom! And just slams into, like, Mach Vice, and Mach Vice is already, like, a big dude, and Lao Ji and Derringer and all the defeated members, and just slams into them and knocks them away really fast. So, Kabu, pretty tough guy. Then we have Bian, who is the leader of, like, the pink wasp troops or whatever they were called. And she could transform into a Suzumebachi, which is a Japanese giant hornet, all right? So she gets a stinger, keeping in mind that wasp and hornet stingers do not have barbs on them, so they can sting all day long and don't have to worry about their stinger getting ripped out and dying. That's a honeybee. That's a bee thing, right? Bees and wasps and hornets are all part of the same group, which is Hymenoptera. Ants are always included in that too, so just keep that in mind. Some people kind of forget about that, but yeah, ants are very closely related to bees and wasps. As with that, every hornet is a wasp, not every wasp is a hornet. It goes more like wasp, and then like hornet is a subset of that, okay? And then you got honeybees, you got the European honeybee, you got the Western honeybee. Is there a Western honeybee? I'm pretty sure there's a Western honeybee. And then you have bee, you know, Apis bombylatus, and, you know, you have all those little bees that are just buzzing around. And then, of course, you have, like, the killer bee, which is, like a mean name. You know, they're really not much different than honeybees. They just kind of are a little bit more aggressive when defending their hive. But that's kind of it. I mean, don't piss off bees. You don't want to piss off a honeybee, and you certainly don't want to piss off a yellow jacket. I'm terrified of yellow jackets. They are really scary. I was swarmed by yellow jackets when I was a kid, which simultaneously gave me this interest in bugs and insects and entomology and all that stuff. At the same time, still very much terrified of yellow jackets. But oddly enough, it's just yellow jackets. If I see, like, a bald-faced hornet, I think bald-faced hornets are cool as hell. I'll be like, woo, that's neat. Yellow jackets, I run screaming. But everything else, I'm cool with. You know, you explain to me how that works. I don't know. Anywho, yeah, so I'm assuming she has venom. She can inject venom into you. We don't really see her utilizing her stinger in any way. You know, and she doesn't have any name techniques or anything like that. Kabu gets a little bit more action than she does. But, you know, she can fly around and do all the things that, you know, a giant hornet could do. And just in case you need a reminder of how big a giant hornet is, here you go. Pretty giant. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Absolutely. So, yeah, those are the two Mushi Mushi Nomis that we are 100% confirmed exist in the story. Now, for the third one, going back to you guys leaving a little bit of guesses in the comments already. Have you guessed who it is? All right, I'll tell you. Well, you guys remember Heraclean, Usopp's trainer on the Boeing Islands that were actually not islands, but in fact giant carnivorous plants? Well, he doesn't have one. No, he doesn't. Many of you might have guessed Heraclean, like he has the Hercules Beetle zone. Good guess, but no, unfortunately. Heraclean is just a botanist. Kind of adjacent to the study of insects, botany. You know, they're plants, insects. Insects and plants hang out a lot. They pollinate and do all that stuff. But no, Heraclean is just like this really weird but badass botanist that got trapped on the Boeing Islands years ago and just figured out how pop greens worked, killed a bunch of bugs, made a badass suit of armor out of them, and he's just living his best life. That's Heraclean, okay? And he was Usopp's mentor, right? But no. Do you guys remember Apoida? Yeah, anybody that suggested Apoida, congratulations, you get a cookie. Apoida is an ally of Whitebeard that showed up during Marineford. And 30 years ago, when we see Whitebeard's original crew arriving at Wano, Apoida was a member of that original crew that eventually split off and then went to college and then formed their own pirate crew, okay? Now, Apoida doesn't really do much during Marineford, just like a lot of Whitebeard's allies. The only ones that really get to do a lot of stuff are like the DeClavin brothers, and there was Squardo because he stabbed Whitebeard. That was like the most notable thing the ally actually did. So Apoida, only in the manga, not in the anime, has one panel where very clearly he transforms into a caterpillar. And in case you're a little dubious at that, like, how do you know that's a caterpillar? Have you seen his Jolly Roger? It's a caterpillar. Okay. So he has the power to transform into a caterpillar. That is an insect. Caterpillar, 100%, is an insect. It is the larval stage of a butterfly, which is part of a Lepidoptera, okay, along with the moths, all right? So 100% insect, which means Apoida has the Mushi Mushi no Mi model caterpillar. Bonus points could also be the Mushi Mushi no Mi mythical model Hungry Hungry caterpillar. He was just so hungry. He devoured everything. And he just kept going. He devoured the Earth and the sun and the Milky Way galaxy. Will his hunger ever be sated? I love the Hungry Hungry caterpillar. Just it was a great storybook as a kid. Oh my god. Okay. So yeah, Apoida can turn into a caterpillar. Now, given the fact caterpillars tend to go through, their larval, butterflies go through their larval stage, and then their chrysalis stage, and then finally, become butterflies and whatnot. I would assume this was also a function that would be built into this devil fruit. So we might have something of the Tama Nomi going on here, Baron Tamagos. Many of you might have brought up, like, why didn't you bring up Baron Tamago during the bird fruit video? Tamago's fruit, it is a zone. It is the weirdest zone. Oda really just wanted to have fun with that. I think he just wanted to play off of the whole which came first, the chicken or the egg sort of thing. Baron Tamago is a zone. It's not the bird fruit model chicken. It is literally the egg fruit. That is the literal name of it. It's like its own thing. And I already made a video about his a while back. But yeah, it operates a little differently. So maybe Apoida's does something as well, where Apoida goes into his larval stage, the caterpillar, but then can transform into a chrysalis, and then can also transform into a butterfly. Do you guys remember that one filler arc of Dragon Ball Z? It was after the Cell saga, but before Boo, when Goku's dead and he's hanging around Otherworld, and he goes into the Otherworld tournament. And one of the opponents he fights against was like this giant caterpillar alien guy. And he's really weak. Like, he tried to like tickle Goku and defeat him that way. And Goku just clearly was stronger than him. And he eventually goes into a chrysalis form. And it was mentioned that, like, yeah, he's going to be in that chrysalis form for like 1,000 years. But when he wakes up, he's going to be the strongest fighter in all of existence. And they had to like, well, it's going to be 1,000 years. So Goku just won the fight. Like, that was funny. But like, I've always thought about like that caterpillar guy. Like, is like they're actually gonna go back to that at some point? Like, how strong is he gonna be? Is he stronger than Beerus? Is he stronger than the Omni King? When he hatches, he will be the ultimate being. This is how Omni Kings are born. Probably not, but it was an interesting idea. So maybe Apoida can do something similar to that as well, right? Do you ever do, when I was in elementary school, we had the science experiment where we had to go out and collect like monarch butterfly larvae, like the caterpillars, and then we had to get milkweed, and then we had to bring them back, and we put them in little containers, and we got to see them, actually live there and gorge themselves on milkweed, and then go to the top of the container, and then do the little J shape that they make, and then they spin, and then make their little chrysalis, and then we got to see, butterflies, hatch, and we brought them outside, and they all flew away. I very remember this. I caught 3 of them. 2 of them were able to turn into monarch butterflies, and they flew away. 1 of them died in the chrysalis, and I remember that. I remember going to school and seeing our little containers all lined up, and my one little chrysalis off to the side, it just turned black one day, and I was like, that doesn't look good. Like, I didn't even have to ask the teacher. Like, anytime, like, the chrysalis, it turned black, and I'm like, yeah, I think something went wrong there. I think it died. It is insane how insect metamorphosis works. Like, I need you to understand something, okay? How insane biology works, okay? A caterpillar effectively turns into goo when it's in the chrysalis. It turns into goo, okay? And then that goo reshapes itself into a different insect. I mean, it's the same insect species, but like turns itself into something completely indistinguishable from the original. Turns into a fucking butterfly, flaps its wings, and flies away. Or a moth. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I think that's crazy. I think that's weird, but I think that's so cool, right? Yeah, there's over 1 million insect species on this planet, and there's like 10,000 species that get discovered roughly on average every single year. So, I could just sit here and just go through a bunch of insects, but let's tackle the most notable ones. Insect Zoan model ant. Fire ants. Some ants have stingers as well, which makes them, related to wasps and bees. So we did ant facts on the channel. That was the very first animal fact we ever did. And so, yeah, we have carpenter ants. You have fire ants. You could have the bullet ant. Mushi no Mi model bullet ant. That would be badass. Army ant. That would be really cool. Butterflies and moths. Apoida kind of already covers that. Let's see. Flies and mosquitoes. Mosquitoes have killed a lot of people. The single most deadliest animal on the entire planet. Not even close. I saw a statistic once, and I hesitate to say if this is true because it sounds ridiculous. It sounds absurd what I'm about to tell you. All right. So I don't know. It's just one of those things I saw one time and I just never really double checked. You could double check if you'd like. Out of every single human being that has ever existed, which I think is somewhere like around 100 billion, every Homo sapien to ever exist, mosquitoes are responsible for killing half of us. That sounds insane, right? Which, like 50 billion of the Homo sapien species, which is what I say as I preface. I don't know if that's true, because that sounds a little crazy. But when you think about the sheer number of diseases that these things spread and the amount that they kill even today, like malaria, the amount they kill, it actually kind of makes a little bit of sense, but I don't know. So somebody fact check that, all right? But a mosquito Zoan, you run the opposite direction. Somebody just has a giant proboscis that they just show up and stab you and just suck you dry, like Mosquito Girl from One Punch Man. Let's see, flies, you know, you have like horse flies, they get pretty big. Oh, the dragonfly. Gotta have a dragonfly Zoan. Like I said, there was a dragonfly back in the Carboniferous period that was really, really big. Praying mantises. Apologize to that one praying mantis I kicked really hard when I was a kid. That was before I had an interest in insects. It was me kicking a praying mantis when I was like 6. That was a really big praying mantis too. It was huge. All right, like yeah. So it was kicking a praying mantis and then getting swarmed by a bunch of insects, a bunch of wasps when I was a little kid. That I decided I really liked bugs. Yeah, it was, hey, you end up where you end up, I suppose. Okay. But stick bugs, I like a stick bug. Stick bug would be fun. You get to just mold in. I love the amount of different camouflage that certain insects has. One of my friends, like, because they know I like bugs, showed me a picture of this bug the other day that was like an insect that essentially, its skin had adapted to be it looks like the bark of a tree, pretty much, or like a leaf. And it's like, it's so cool. There's so many that are like that, and they just look indistinguishable from it. Like the amount of camouflage that they've adapted to in order to hide from birds and things. Some will do something like that, like to be really hidden. Other insects will just go the opposite route and have like aposematic coloring that's like super, super bright reds or blues to just let everybody know that like, hey, don't eat me. I'm poisonous. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're not going to have a fun time, right? And so lots of bugs like that. Like a lot of caterpillars will have like hairs on their body that will stand on end. And if you ever see the bristly, you know, caterpillars that are going by, that's there to deter birds and other insects to eating them. Frogs as well. You know, it's just an evolutionary arms race out there in the wild. Nature is scary. But I have this insect book right here, so we'll just do the same thing we did with the dinosaurs. Let's just flip to some random pages to see what we got here. Let's see. We got, the cinnabar moth. That's a cool looking moth right there. And it has the volcano badge from Blaine. So that's pretty neat. What do we have here? The meadow grasshopper. A lot of grasshoppers out there. The true bugs. Yeah, there we go. Frog hoppers, the shield bug. Ooh, the leaf bug. That looks pretty cool there. Oh, I got something else to tell you, because that reminds me of a stink bug. All right. Stink bug. Crazy stink bug story. And then I'll get going, because I'm just going to keep gushing about insects, and we'll be here all night, okay? So, back when I still lived with my mom a few years back, you know, before I moved, I was downstairs going through, like, storage, going through, like, a bunch of, like, totes and things, and I found an old laptop case, you know, from, like, when I was, like, in college or whatever, and I had this laptop case, and I'm like, oh, okay, so there's, like, little pockets on the side of it, like, zipped up, so I opened one of the zipped, you know, compartments to see if there was anything in there, and I saw what I thought was a dead stink bug, so I opened it up and was like, oh, dead bug in there. I didn't take it out. I just zipped it back up and just put it back in this tote and then sealed it, and it just stayed in our basement for like a year and a half, okay? Then I move here, all right? So I'm going through my house. I find all the totes. I load them onto the truck. We all take them all back to here. I unpack everything. I put them in my house. I move this one tote into my garage where I proceed to not touch it because I had all this other stuff to unpack for like another 6 months. Finally, I get around to going through this tote again for the first time in like 2 years. I open the tote. I see the laptop bag. I unzip it. I see that stink bug, and I remember seeing it the first time, and I'm like, oh, that bug is still in there. It was still alive. It was in a state of torpor or like, you know, freaking, I don't know, that thing that like water bears do or whatever. Like, it was in a state of just like, it was moving. It was moving, and I'm like, how did this thing survive in a sealed compartment in a laptop case? in a plastic tote buried under a bunch of stuff in a cold basement for like a year and a half, and then in my garage for an entire winter after that. How? And then I looked it up, and apparently they can gather, they could be in hibernation for a while, they can survive on fat stores, they can absorb moisture from the air. Insects are awesome! Okay, that's my video. That's the video on the Bug Zoans. I could just keep going, but we'd be here for a while. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Next up, we get to talk about the man, the myth, the legend. We get to talk about Lord Orochi and his Yamato no Orochi zone. I am back, everybody. Ha ha ha. I get to use the voice again. Nobody got annoyed at that, I'm sure. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed the Bug Zoan. Let me know down below all the different bugs that you like, that you want to see, or the ones that you're terrified of. And if a character had this Bug Zoan in One Piece, you'd be freaked out and it would be a really intimidating power. Let me know down below, guys. Thanks a lot. Teching, signing out.